If you were coming into Liverpool as a visitor and arriving here on a cruise liner, this is one of the first sights you would see. This, of course, is the famous Liver building. You can't actually see its neighbours at the moment because the view is obscured by the stages for the Eurovision Song Contest. This memorial was originally built to commemorate the 32 engineers who lost their lives in the sinking of the Titanic, which happened on the 15th of April 1912. Now you can usually walk through here, but obviously we can't today, so to show you these three buildings I'm going to have to go round the other side onto the Strand. Now this is a solo Vico songbird, and they've been placed at various locations in Liverpool. They're apparently the national bird of Ukraine and a symbol of song and happiness. I think there's 12 of them in all, and I think the solo Vico songbird translates to nightingale. Let's look at these three buildings then. The first one is the Liver building, and next door is the Cunard building. This used to be the headquarters of the Cunard Line shipping company, and this is its rather grand entrance, or at least one of them. Now this building that you can see here doesn't really count. It's not part of the three we're going to look at today, but it's worth a mention. This is George's Dock building. It's a grade 2 listed building, and basically it's a ventilation shaft for the Queensway Tunnel, which is a tunnel which runs under the River Mersey. This Art Deco style building was designed by Herbert Rouse, and it was completed in 1934. Right, so the third of the three buildings that we're looking at is this one, and this is the Port of Liverpool building. This building was originally the headquarters of the Mersey Docks and Harbour Board, otherwise known as the Dock Office. These three buildings which we've just looked at, couldn't get close to them today because the whole area is cordoned off because of the Eurovision Song Contest. But these three buildings, the Liver building, the Cunard building and the Port of Liverpool building, collectively are known as the Three Graces. But the building we're going to take a look at, a lot of people call the Fourth Grace. But this building was actually here before the other three. So maybe it's the First Grace, and they're the second, third and fourth. This is the Royal Albert Dock and the buildings which surround it. The building we're going to take a look at today no longer exists, so the only way we can have a look at it is by using old photographs. This is an aerial shot of the area taken sometime before World War II, I'm guessing sometime during the early 1930s. At the bottom of the photograph is the Albert Dock. The actual dock itself is not in the shot, but the buildings that we've just seen are. Just above the centre of the photograph is the distinctive H shape of the Customs House. And just in front of the Customs House you can see the overhead railway. To the bottom left just bottom left of centre really, just opposite the buildings of the Albert Dock. You can see the pump house with its distinctive chimney. The pump house was originally used as a hydraulic pump, which was used to power the cranes which would be used to unload and load ships in the Albert Dock. The video prior to this one was about South Castle Street, and if you watch that video, or you know South Castle Street yourself, you'll know that the customs house was visible at one end of the street. From this overhead view, South Castle Street would have been to the left, so I'm guessing that this is the view. Following the closure of the old dock on the 31st of August 1826, plans were made for the construction of what was to be Liverpool's fifth custom house on a site which had been filled with concrete prior to its construction. We're basically stood on part of Liverpool's old dock, and you can see some of it down this shaft here, and you can also book a tour. I'm just going to let this wonderful piano player complete his tune before we move on. Back in those days, Liverpool was still a town. Liverpool wasn't granted city status until 1880, so the town surveyor, John Foster, who would later go on to design the Oratory and St James's Cemetery, was charged with designing the building, which was to be located parallel to the shoreline. On the 12th of August 1828, the first stone was laid by Liverpool's mayor, Thomas Coley Porter, and this marked the start of the building's construction. Now, some people say it took 11 years and it opened in 1839, but some sources say it opened in 1837, so there's a 2-year difference. Personally, I would go with the 1839 date. This building was said to be the grandest example of Foster's severe Greek revival style, no doubt intended to emulate the great public buildings which were rising at that time in London, such as the General Post Office. It was also a symbol of Liverpool Port's economic importance in the early 19th century. So what was the customs house used for? Well, it housed the post office, and it also served as a dock office, probably before they built the Port of Liverpool building. But first and foremost, it was offices for customs and excise. In other words, it was a tax office. So if you brought a ship into Liverpool and you were carrying goods, your first call would be to the customs and excise office to pay tax on your imports. During World War II, Liverpool was very heavily bombed, especially around its dock area. The customs house was one of many historic buildings to be badly damaged during what is now called the May Blitz of 1941. The building was hit and was engulfed in flames. This aerial photograph shows the extent of the damage, not only to the customs house itself, but to the surrounding area. This photograph of South Castle Street not only shows the damage to that particular street itself, but it also shows the customs house in the distance, minus its dome. It's been said that this building wasn't damaged beyond repair. In fact, there were many buildings in Liverpool which were damaged just as badly or even worse than the customs house, and they were rebuilt. But the problem with this building was that it was owned by the British government. It was a government tax office, and they wouldn't put up the money for its repair. Now, many people blame Liverpool City Council for this building's demise. How true that is, I don't know. But the fact is that the government wouldn't put up the money for its repair. So while the building survived the bombs of World War II, it didn't survive the wrecking ball, and it was demolished in 1948. In the video I made about South Castle Street, I showed a few photographs where the customs house was visible. But by the time I was a kid and going to South Castle Street to catch the number 5 bus home to Woolton, the building had gone. I had no idea there was even a building there. My recollection of the view down South Castle Street was of a car park, and that's basically what happened to the customs house. It was flattened and eventually became a piece of wasteland where people park their cars. So what is on the site now? Or rather, if the building was still there, where would it be? Earlier in the video we had a look at an old black and white aerial photograph which showed a geographical location between the pump house and the customs house. This was the photograph, and you can see the pump house and its chimney just off centre at the bottom of the photo there. So if we were to walk past the pump house and across the bridge which divides the two docks, we would come to the customs house, which is slightly to the right of the position of the pump house. Back to modern day, and this is the pump house on the left hand side. It no longer provides the energy to work the hydraulic cranes on the Albert Dock. These days the pump house is a pub. As we walk past the pump house pub and make our way towards the Strand, you'll probably notice that modern day Liverpool is a very different place than when that black and white aerial photograph was taken. These docks now are tourist attractions. From here we would certainly be able to see the customs house, but as we know, it's been gone since 1948. What has replaced it here is the Hilton Hotel. I found this image on the internet, and it shows exactly what this view would look like if the customs house was still here. So if you made this image, thank you very much. I hope you don't mind me using it, and if you drop me a line, I'll give you a credit in the notes below. There are many people who would say that the loss of the customs house was one of Liverpool's biggest losses in terms of lost buildings. There's also many people, a lot of people I know, who know about the customs house but didn't know exactly where it was. So hopefully this video has been of some help in that respect. But one strange fact is that there was many people when the customs house was first built who didn't like it. They thought it was ugly, and they said it was too heavy and imposing. So it just goes to show that you can't please everybody. Anyway, as always, thank you very much for watching, and we'll catch up soon.